I'm Saranya Sriram. I'm part of the massively scalable geo-distributed database as a service from Microsoft. It's called the Azure Cosmos DB. And today we'll be chatting about why is this database powering OpenAI's ChatGPT. Before we get started, we'll start with a day in a life with Azure Cosmos DB. It's more a quick bird's eye view across all industries that you see this database being used today.
From work time to fun time, Azure Cosmos DB powers the apps that power your day. Rise and shine with personalized mobile and online experiences powered by Azure Cosmos DB. You get your Starbucks coffee your way. Gas up and go. Real-time vehicle diagnostics let you know if your connected car is low on fuel. Going up, no time to take the stairs. Predictive maintenance means a smooth and safe ride to the 10th floor. Sign in, say hi. The consistent reliability of Microsoft Teams keeps the collaboration going wherever you are, using Azure Cosmos DB as the primary data store. Learn something new. Built on Azure Cosmos DB, ChatGPT's always ready to answer your questions and converse with context. See who called. Secure storage means your AT&T voicemails are ready when you are. Order up. What were the groceries you ordered last week? Walmart makes reorders easy with all transactions served by Azure Cosmos DB. Check your balance. Fidelity's secure real-time transaction processing means real-time financial management. Finally, vacation. No sitting on the tarmac for you. Azure Cosmos DB powers fuel management for JetBlue. Your modern life is built on modern apps. And modern, intelligent apps are built on Azure Cosmos DB.
Talking of applications, applications form the bedrock, the baseline for digital transformation. And more than ever, today, modern AI applications have some salient features and needs. And when we talk of needs like simple, clear UI, intuitive user experiences, real-time, near real-time access, responsive, always available. Things like security, privacy, cloud integration, maybe monitoring, telemetry are all table stakes and general hygiene when you build modern apps. And in line of this conference and the theme, every single customer, every single developer that I speak to, and I'm sure we all know, want to integrate into AI, make it AI-enabled, Gen AI capabilities, such that they are able to create immersive experiences, always accessible with data. Today's discussion is focused on data. Data being the very fabric for connecting users to engagements, helping to light up wonderful user experiences. Right? Let's take a memory down through the evolution of data management as we all see. It has nothing to do with our specific data store or maybe specifically about one particular technology. Data as such, when we see the way it was generated in the past, data being mostly structured, relational, text-based, to today, data is increased in volume, velocity, in variety. You see data from images, videos, sensors. It's data generation at one hand, but also data collection. In the past, it used to be a monolithic database solution capacity with limited limits on premises. Today, data, for example, is pretty much on the cloud. Any cloud, but cloud infrastructure hosted, intelligent, it's dynamically scalable, scale out horizontally, scale up vertically as well. Moving on to query. Query engine is like the core of all databases, right? In the past, querying was primarily structured query with SQL predicates, filters, with exact similarity request, etc., SQL-based queries. Today, AI simplifies querying, similarity search. All of us have heard of this word vector search. Vector search is available now in all databases. It's like the like button. How efficiently can one do this like versus another like? What are the various ways to do vector searches? So even searching and querying has gone through a lot of transformation. Moving on to data processing. When we look at data processing, relational databases used to have another component. Hey, I'll have an analytical workload. I'll have to have historical data processing. Now the data processing requirements are real-time, near real-time, blurring your boundaries between OLTP and OLAP, right? With the volume of data that is coming in and the accuracy and speed and performance that we want in these data processing as well. Analytics. Talking of analytics, how can I analyze my data more so with Gen AI leading to better analytical spaces? Last but not the least, I do want to call out that what today users are expecting is actionable insights that a data platform can provide to end users. How can I understand what I want to do? How can they look at my data and human eye and human cognition, just look at patterns and help me understand what I have, right? With that context in place, I would love to introduce our database as a service, presenting to you the Microsoft Azure Cosmos database for mission-critical applications in the era of AI. It's a database with very strong promises of anytime, anywhere, always on, at P99, at planet scale. These are very huge promises. When we talk of promise, one thing I do want to highlight is the elasticity of this database service. Provide autoscale, we provide serverless, dynamic scalings, at single millisecond read and write latency at P99. So there's multiple improvements on cost and things that we go along. At a granular level, Cosmos DB is very much resource governed, providing tenant isolation and governance. Moving on, when you look at databases, especially cloud databases, the end users are, the consumers are the developers, application developers. Providing flexible developer SDKs, Cosmos DB provides .NET, Java, JavaScript, Python, Go, and Spark-based connectors as well. So it really provides that richness of open-source SDKs out there. Emulator for development across Linux, Windows, things around GraphQL support, which app devs would love. For example, today people are building web or full-stack applications. Cosmos DB is also schema agnostic. The very fact that it is a NoSQL or a DSQL store, ability for us to store multiple data types, data structures. It has what we call as the native NoSQL or the core API, which is a JSON store, essentially an object store, document store. But other than that, we also support other protocols or native I/O protocols like Mongo, Cassandra, Gremlin, Postgres, making it a truly kind of a distributed SQL platform. Point to note, though, is at this point, these multi-model databases don't interact with each other. You choose a particular model within the same ecosystem. There are customers who use multiple models within the same era, so they get the same developer flexibility, similar experience for building, but it does support multiple data models. The heartbeat of Cosmos DB that I do want to highlight is the claim to fame is its high availability, reliability, ability for you to have an RT of 0 at a planet-wide distributed database, provides you things like multi-master or multiple writes across geo. So brings very interesting problems in distributed computing space, in academia, or even in research. Like, how do you have things to beat the science of physics, right? If you have data across geo-distribution, people are accepting writes across, how do we conflict resolve these? How do we have consistencies? Are there only strong and eventual consistencies? Or can you have better pit stops, better defaults to ensure that the end user's use case can be catered to? Things like 70% of Cosmos DB use what we call a session state consistency, providing monotonic reads, monotonic writes for the user session, so people have that availability, reliability, performance that they experience. Last but not the least, I do want to highlight that there is direct connectors and support for real-time analytics with other analytics platforms that we have out there and our first-party ones like the Microsoft Fabric as well. With this, for the context of today's discussion, I do want to bring it back to Cosmos DB being the best database for AI apps on few fronts. We'll start from the backwards. One front, the basic tenets of the principles on which this database was born, envisioned, and built. Limitless scale, low latency at P99, availability, reliability, mission-critical security. So that forms the bedrock for really getting real-time experiences. Followed by, we do see Azure Cosmos DB quite natively integrated in Azure OpenAI's in terms of plugins, integrations, storing chat histories for contextual reference, so on and so forth. But also innately, the database is a huge database with a vector index and a vector database together, so you have data at one point, and you're able to perform vector searches using state-of-art, probably the best vector search algorithm open source that's available right now with disk ANN, etc. So testament to that, want to definitely highlight that Azure Cosmos DB is continuing to be used by OpenAI's ChatGPT. We've seen phenomenal growth in a way that we have about 11 billion transactions or requests or queries that we happen on a daily fashion. These are staggering numbers, right? And when we say it's a distributed database, we're looking at physical shards or partitions, over 40,000 physical shards. And you know, every single request is served under 10 milliseconds, and that's the promise of this platform. Developer experience on AI also needs a special mention. Effortless developer experience for rapid iterations, connectors, say, for semantic kernel, for LangChain, things for us to connect to Kubernetes, Dapper, even IDEs like Python SDKs connecting to, and of course, we do have it with .NET and Java, etc. So provides you an ecosystem of ease to be able to improve your developer productivity. What are the use cases that we see with customers out there today? Just to give you a data point or a number out there, among all Azure OpenAI's, that is OpenAI, Azure AI's customer base, organically we've seen Cosmos DB attached to about 25% without doing anything, right? So when we analyze that, open that, because we have telemetry to the data that we see, for example, we see these use cases emerging, some of it very nascent, things like chat history, RAG patterns, those are more common. We see that quite often. Things around multi-agent or even multi-tenanted AI apps is quite potential, but we're seeing those things come up as well. Personalization, fraud detection, real-time recommendation, all boils down to reliability, speed, and retrieval, and even the performance on the vector searches that we have. So with this, I would love to transfer or move on to specifically the vector search component that we have built in on Azure Cosmos DB. We use the open source disk ANN, which came out of Microsoft Research, wherein you do have large vectors that you quantize or compress, and you're able to store in memory. But the in-memory compressed vectors have a back channel automatically to the SSD back, the full vector store along with the graph, right? And the ability for us to do this very at scale and with the same efficiency using the algorithms creates the rock bed of this vector search technology. The differentiation really is, as I said, and as I said before, you're able to store your vector and your actual database together at one place. You're able to do your vector search and filtered search, which means you can bring in your SQL predicates, do your regular SQL searches, including datetime, numbers, text operations, even spatial operators, etc. And you can combine that in a simulated sort of a hybrid search fashion. Indexing, you have options to do indexing. You want to have brute force indexing. You have limited data. You can do that. Quantize flat. As I said, disk ANN. It's kind of better than HSNW, etc. as well. The rock bed for all of this differentiation is the platform by itself. So in today's discussion or keynote, I did spend quite a bit of time on the rock bed, and that really brings us back to the Cosmos DB being serverless, provisioned at an auto-scale fashion, instant dynamic scaling, limitless scaling, low latency, single-digit read and write latency at P99 with financially backed SLA for availability, for reliability, for latency, for availability, etc. So that makes the system a lot more robust. With that, I would like to show a really quick walkthrough of this in action. This is going to be a blazing fast walkthrough of how you can build AI-powered applications using Azure Cosmos DB with disk ANN. Blazing fast, highly scalable, and efficient. Let's get started. So what we will do here is we want to build an e-commerce assistant for our e-commerce platform, shopping assistant. And we'll do that using Azure Cosmos DB. In less than $2, you can go and stand up a Cosmos DB serverless account. And on that serverless account, you could use demos, you could do low traffic workloads, you could do just multi-tenanted app. And at any time, you can convert that to a provisioned throughput as well if you want to scale. Right? So here you bring data and your vector in one place, so you don't need to go elsewhere as well. So when we now look at the feature called change feed, which is integrated with what is Azure Cosmos DB or Azure Functions integration, we can write scripts to keep our vectors fresh, write our vectors, update our vectors as and when they change underlying data. We are going to use Python here to go ahead and build our shopping assistant and then go and see how we can integrate using query on vectors here. The same vector query, the distance query, the semantic query, is actually used by Microsoft Bing, is used by Office 365 at the scale of hundreds of billions of vectors, so it really works. Right? When we look at this query, we are trying to do a distance query on vector using a similarity search based on the embeddings and the components that we are providing here. And we write off these, and we are able to filter, hey, I want to order from top to bottom in terms of similarity. I want to remove certain similarity, et cetera. And as I do that, I'm able to see a result. Hey, but if I want to add some filters, I want to say I want to have prices less than $400. The price list that I got was pretty high. I want to be able to use vector search and my regular SQL searches across. I'm going to add this here. In this case, I'm going to say, give me all the prices less than $400. This looks good, but I want to do a similarity with a price cap. On the price, we do see now I'm getting prices 120 or lower, which is like absolutely like blazing fast without any compromise. Moving on to RAG patterns, I can bring RAG patterns in. As I said, I could go and say, hey, store chat histories on Azure Cosmos DB. We'll try to give you contextual relevance. And not just that, we have embedded with semantic caching to kind of say every time you don't need to go to an LLM, we will be able to cache the LLM responses and be able to have that integrated. Using Gradio here, what we did was to go and build a simple UI, and we brought in Cosmos DB out there. The scale out here is you can actually go ahead and say, change it to provision throughput. Even at ultimate planet scale, we are able to scale very accurately, reliably on Azure Cosmos DB. Wanted to call out the disk ANN recall in terms of the speed for various kinds of operations, including inserts, updates, deletes, and at the scale in terms of lots of data operations out there. So highlighting disk ANN out there as well. In short, this blazingly fast walkthrough, interest of time, was to kind of highlight how easy it is to build Azure Cosmos DB applications, AI applications with, say, vector search, having Cosmos DB as your vector store as well, and trying to bring in SQL filter predicates to have filtered searches, simulated hybrid searches, so on and so forth, but also able to scale that up, deploy these solutions in Azure Web Apps or any other web applications, and bring it on to production, scale from 0 to the limitless scale. So with this is a quick walkthrough that we want. And I wanted to leave you out with how can you get started today? What is it? Is there a free option? Or is there something that you can dabble as developers? Or are you interested to go ahead and play with? So we do have free forever Cosmos DB option. It's called the free tier, provides what we call as 1,000 request units. By that is actually 1,000 reads of about 1 kilobyte documents. That's kind of the conversion at this point. But then up to 125 GB of data, free forever for us to try and test. And that account is as good as a production account, which means you can do vector searches, you can do all the things that I showed you right here. With this, thank you very much for your time, and hope this was educative and useful.